The candles were already burning by the time I realized no one else was coming. Their warm glow stretched across our tiny apartment, reflecting off two neatly arranged dinner plates. My roommate stood silently at the edge of the table, staring at the front door as every passing second crushed another piece of hope inside him. Then, after one long, heartbreaking breath, he picked up the untouched plate meant for someone else, carried it across the table, and gently placed it in front of me. At that moment, I understood that sometimes the loneliest people don't need perfect words. They simply need someone willing to stay. Before we continue, if you believe kindness deserves a second chance and that small acts of compassion can completely change someone's life, please like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support helps these stories reach people who may need them the most. When I first moved into the apartment, I never expected that Noah would become more than just the quiet guy splitting the rent. We were complete opposites. I worked long hours repairing heating systems across the city and usually returned home exhausted, while Noah worked remotely as a graphic designer, spending most evenings surrounded by sketchbooks, coffee mugs, and unfinished ideas. He wasn't loud or outgoing. He was simply kind in ways the world rarely noticed. He remembered birthdays, watered dying plants in the hallway, helped elderly neighbors carry groceries upstairs, and somehow always smiled even when life clearly wasn't smiling back. Over time I noticed something else. Noah always gave more than he received. Friends canceled plans without apologizing. Family rarely called unless they needed a favor. Every relationship seemed to leave him carrying the weight while someone else walked away untouched. Yet somehow he never stopped believing people could still surprise him. A few weeks before that unforgettable evening, Noah mentioned that he had finally met someone who seemed different. They had talked every night for nearly 2 months. They laughed about childhood memories, shared favorite books, and dreamed about places they hoped to visit one day. For the first time since I'd known him, there was excitement in his voice instead of quiet acceptance. Watching him smile made our little apartment feel brighter. The entire day of the dinner felt different. Noah woke up early, cleaned every corner of the apartment, bought fresh flowers with money he probably should have saved, and spent hours cooking dishes that filled every room with comforting aromas. He searched online for recipes, tasted every sauce 3 different times, ironed his shirt twice, and even polished the silverware. It wasn't just dinner. It was hope carefully arranged on a wooden table. As evening arrived, he checked the clock every few minutes. He adjusted the candles, straightened the napkins, and smiled every time footsteps echoed outside the hallway. 7 o'clock arrived. Then 7:15. Then 7:30. Every vibration from his phone made his eyes light up before disappointment settled in again. No explanation came. No apology. Just silence. By 8 o'clock the food had started to cool, but Noah kept insisting there was probably traffic or a dead phone battery. I wanted to believe him because he believed it so desperately himself. Deep down, though, I already knew the truth that he refused to face. At 9 o'clock he finally looked toward the window instead of the front door. The hope had quietly disappeared from his eyes. Without saying anything, he picked up the untouched plate prepared for someone who had never intended to arrive. For a moment I thought he was throwing everything away. Instead, he walked around the table and gently placed that meal in front of me before sitting across from me with the smallest smile I'd ever seen. We ate together in complete silence at first. The candles still burned exactly as he had planned, but somehow they no longer represented disappointment. They became proof that kindness can survive even after rejection. Noah eventually admitted that this wasn't the first time someone had walked away without explanation. He wondered aloud whether there was simply something wrong with him that made people leave so easily. Hearing those words broke something inside me because I knew they weren't true. The world has a strange habit of making the kindest people question their own worth whenever someone else fails to appreciate them. Over the following weeks I made a quiet promise to myself. I couldn't erase Noah's heartbreak, but I could make sure he never felt invisible inside his own home again. We began sharing dinners instead of eating separately. We explored small cafes on weekends, watched terrible movies that somehow became unforgettable memories, and started taking evening walks whenever life felt overwhelming. None of it was expensive. None of it was extraordinary. Yet every simple moment slowly replaced an old painful memory with a better one. Months later, something remarkable happened. Noah stopped checking his phone every few minutes. He laughed more often. His artwork became brighter. He volunteered at a local community center teaching children how to draw, and for the first time I saw him receive appreciation without having to earn it through endless sacrifice. Those children adored him because they saw exactly what others had overlooked, a genuinely good person. Watching him heal changed me too. I had spent years believing success came from working harder, earning more money, and never depending on anyone. Noah quietly proved that real wealth is measured by the people willing to sit beside you when life doesn't go according to plan. A shared meal can become therapy. A listening ear can rescue someone from loneliness. An ordinary evening can become the beginning of an entirely different life. Nearly a year after that unforgettable dinner, we celebrated becoming roommates for another year. This time the table looked just as beautiful as before, but there were no expectations attached to it. Friends from the neighborhood filled the apartment with laughter. Elderly neighbors brought homemade desserts. The children Noah had taught proudly handed him drawings they had made themselves. Looking around the room, I realized that the person who had once waited for one guest had unknowingly built an entire family. That night, after everyone had gone home, Noah admitted that being stood up had once felt like the worst day of his life. Looking back, he realized it had quietly redirected him toward people who genuinely cared. Sometimes closed doors aren't punishments. Sometimes they're gentle pushes toward the place we were always meant to find. If this story has touched your heart so far, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who may feel alone today, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support allows stories of hope, forgiveness, and second chances to reach even more people. Special request: tell us in the comments about one small act of kindness that changed your life or restored your faith in people. As I looked at the same dining table where heartbreak had once sat quietly between two candles, I realized that the most unforgettable dinner I had ever shared wasn't the one Noah had planned. It was the unexpected meal that reminded both of us that love doesn't always arrive the way we imagine. Sometimes it appears as friendship, loyalty, and someone who simply chooses to stay when everyone else walks away. And in a world where people often leave without warning, that choice can change a life forever.